Today we're looking at the little device that goes in your pocket and connects you with the world. Cell phones. More specifically, the ones that I owned. Cell phones. I don't have one at this point to show you because we're going to start at the beginning and I don't have the first phone I ever owned. What I have is an image that I found of it online. The first phone I ever got when I was 13. My dad said, "You and your sister go off and do this karate thing. You need to have a phone so I can call you and you can call me when it's time to pick you up." So he added us onto his Verizon line. And back at that point in time, you would get a phone for free. And then you'd get a new one every 2 years. The first phone I ever owned was the LG TM250. Catchy name. It released in March of 2003. I would have been not quite 12 at that point, so it was a little bit later down the road when we picked ours up. But that was the phone that my sister and I shared for years, even leaving it in the backyard during the rain. But it still worked, it just needed a new battery after that. With a screen resolution of 120 by 80 pixels, and such feature-rich as a 950 mAh removable battery, and storage as no info, not expandable, is all I can find online about this. But it served its purpose. We could call when needed. Didn't do texting at that point. That was back when text messages you paid to receive and to send a text message. We weren't allowed to do that. But we did get a cell phone, and we had that for a while. The next phone that I would get would be later down the road a little bit. Another flip phone. And another phone provided by Verizon, which means another LG. That again, I don't have with me. Most of the ones we're going to talk about today, I no longer have, and we're just going to look at images. The LG VX3200. Man, phones used to be called some wild names. Information on this is kind of sparse. It looks like it maybe released the end of 2003, but maybe didn't hit the market until 2004. I'm digging through everything I can in the archives of the internet to try to find information on this stuff. A little bump with the features on this one. Now we've got 128 by 128 pixels and a bigger battery. Now we're up to 1,000 mAh removable battery. But they did want to stay true to the original, so the information I found on storage is no info, not expandable. Moving on. The timeline's a little fuzzy before that point, but we get a little more solid here because in 2008 I was making videos with my siblings, and we specifically made a video about having cell phones. I had a cell phone, the next younger sibling under me had a cell phone, but the youngest sibling did not have a cell phone. And for some reason we made a video where our cell phones got swapped out for lightsaber. Don't worry about it, we were children, that's not the point of this. The point is I have a screenshot of me having a cell phone. And one of the features I felt was useful to record in that video was that mine could record voices.
Well, mine can record voices.
The LG VX5300. We're getting up there in the numbers now, you guys. I found a review from 2006. That's about the earliest that I can find this, so it probably released then. Again, I was not up on getting the latest phones anywhere near this time period. But now we have an addition. The flip phone with a screen on the outside, so you can see who's calling before you even open the phone up. A bump in resolution. Now we're up to 160 by 128 pixels. With the additional display, which was OLED? What? I had an OLED device in 2000. What? The outside display was a 64 by 96 pixel display. Another bump to 1100 mAh battery. Still removable. We're still in the mid to late 2000s. However, I did find out about storage on this one. This one packed a whopping 23 megabytes of storage. Wow. And came with a camera that, from what I can find, took 0.3 megapixel images. I wish I had some of these. Unfortunately, I don't. I do have a lot of images from the other cameras that we're going to get into, but unfortunately, this was the end of the LG era. February 2009. I'm almost an adult. I'm 17 of age. I'll be 18 in June. And I'm a big boy now. I'm ready for a new phone, and I convinced my dad to let me buy one with money instead of just getting the free one from Verizon every time they offered a new phone. And so we have the BlackBerry Pearl, model number 8130, in silver. The Pearl was so cool. I probably saw a commercial for this thing and went, yeah, I want that. Give me that. It released in October of 2007, but I, again, didn't get it until February of 2009. Now, I know that specifically. How do I know that? Because I have pictures from this. We'll get to that in a minute. Another bump in resolution size. Now we are up to a whole 240 by 260 pixels for the screen resolution. A little drop in battery, 900 milliamp hour battery, but again, removable. That's a benefit you don't see much nowadays. A jump in storage to 64 megabytes that was installed. And I couldn't find anything about whether or not you could even put an SD card in it, but I'll go ahead and spoil it for you a little bit. I didn't start even considering what an SD card was until a lot later down the road. The Pearl was just neat. It was like a trackball, if you remember what that kind of a mouse was, and it had this little ball in it that's how you got around the menus. You would flip the little Pearl, the ball that was in there. You also would have to clean it like a trackball mouse, which meant you would pry up the little ring around it, pop the ball out, lose it, your siblings would steal it, and then hand you back your phone, and you can't use the phone now because your pointer your mouse control is gone on this little BlackBerry phone. But it was really neat, and I did have it up until more recently. I saved it because it was really cool, and going on from this point forward, I saved all the phones that I had. I've lost a few, unfortunately. They've been given away or been trashed over time, out of my control, but I did have them at that point. I do remember wanting to get this one so bad that I remember asking my dad, I really want this, let's go get it, and he said okay, and then we did. I paid, I think, almost $100 of my own money to do this. I was babysitting at the time, and I had to do that. I actually think I didn't have enough, and he covered the rest of it, but I had a certain amount of money. I know I paid some money for a phone on my own at one point. We couldn't find it. Again, it had been released for a year and a half, apparently, and we couldn't find it anywhere. We went to multiple different Verizon stores, and by the end of it, I remember going to one. I still remember the location of it as far as where it was in location to our house. And he said, this is the last one. If they don't have it, you're not getting it. We're not doing this again. It was a one and done, and they had it. So I got it, the whole thing, really cool, got everything set up. It was perfect. This was back when, oh man, transferring phones. When you got a new one, you went into the store and they would plug in the two phones through this special device, which is definitely not just a computer, and transfer everything over, and only Verizon can do such a thing. Phones were so different back then. Now I get a new phone and Android goes, hey, you want everything from your old phone? You got it. It's done. Give us a few minutes to just download all your apps all over again. Everything's there. But it did have a camera. A camera with a whopping 2 megapixels. And it was able to take such great photos as Bag of Chips, Pizzone, my character from RuneScape. The time is now October of 2010. I am a real big boy. I have my own job. I've moved out of my parents' house for the first time. And I'm ready for a new phone. But I'm liking the BlackBerry, so what do? BlackBerry Storm 2, model number 9550. This released in November of 2009, so it had been on the market for a little bit. Again, I wasn't getting fresh off the shelf, the brand new thing. I got it in October of 2009, but it was a touchscreen. Almost annoying touchscreen. You could touch on it, but if you wanted to click, essentially, like imagine if you had a mouse, you could move the mouse around, but in order to click, you had to physically press on the screen that would depress into the phone. What? Why? Yeah, I had some issues with this. It got stuck sometimes. It was cool, though, and I didn't have too many. I knew a friend who also got that one, and they said this is trash and got rid of it. I was able to keep mine the entire way through until I got my next upgrade for a phone. I never had any phone breaking or breaking issues, but I did have some slight annoyances that I remember to this day. The BlackBerry Storm 2 came such feature-rich with features such as 360 by 480 pixels for a screen, a removable 1400 milliamp hour battery. Now about that, we took a jump up from that 900 on the last one. Now we're talking internal storage of 2 gigabytes. 2 gigs of storage space, and you're gonna need it because the camera was a 3.15 megapixel camera. Now we're talking, I guess, at the time, which was 2010. Again, it was in a phone. DSLRs were doing much better at the time. That 3 megapixel camera was able to take such great photos as fan whine prevention for the Xbox 360, my shoe. I kept the BlackBerry Storm 2 in a blue case, which was reminiscent. What I did with the Pearl, I wish I had an image of. I wound up getting a sticker to put on it, a skin, and it was of blue flames. And then I managed to find the same blue flame image online from the website that I bought it from and make that the background of the phone, so you had it matching between the two. This was really cool to me back in the day. The Storm 2 I did not do that with, but I did get a blue case to put around it. And this, quite possibly, is the first selfie I ever took. The time is now June of 2012. The world has moved into smartphones, and I'm behind the times, but not for too much longer. Does the BlackBerry count as a smartphone? The iPhone 4. Finally, the first thing I can actually show you, because the only one that I still have in my hands. I don't remember exactly when I got it. June is the earliest image I can find that came out of this phone, but the image numbering was 2. So maybe I did take an image before, or maybe I had it for a while. I don't know exactly when, but it released in 2010. So yeah, still a couple years later with that. I knew about iPhones. I knew people who had iPhones, and I did own an iPhone at one point. This was the one and only iPhone I ever owned. Technically, this is the third iPhone I ever owned, because the iPhone 4 kept breaking. The power button, the unlock button, just kept breaking. It seems to work here, which is great. For how long, I don't know. I had to go to the Apple store multiple times to get my phone swapped out for a new one. And every time they were like, yeah, that's what happens with those models. It's unfortunate. Here's your new one. Hope this one doesn't do it, but it will. And it was the day before the warranty expired, and the guy told me, he's like, after this one breaks, you're not getting any more. This is the end of it. And I went, cool. And that's why I never went back to iPhone. Now the display is up too. That is not the right time or date at all. You can tell I don't use this anymore. It just stays in a box for memories. Does it hold a charge still? Okay, alright, yeah, alright. Charging it up specifically just for this video. Doesn't work with gloves on. Ew, Facebook's installed on there, and Instagram. I haven't touched this thing in probably a decade. Was I using Reddit at that point? That doesn't make sense. I think I've wiped this at some point and then repurposed it. That's what I like to do with old phones. That happens quite often. We are up to an impressive, at the time, 640 by 960 pixel display, with a 1420 milliamp hour non-removable battery. Unfortunately, that's the way of the future. I don't 100% know how much storage. Well, I guess I could look, can't I? I'm double checking because in my notes I could not find exactly. Yes, capacity 6.2 gigabytes. So this is the 8 gig model, which was the cheapest at the time. No surprise, that's all I could really afford. I probably put this on a credit card because I didn't really have money then. However, it did come with a 5 megapixel rear camera. Currently, it is in a Minecraft Creeper inspired phone case. Neat. This is not the original case I had it in. For a very long time, I had it in something similar to an OtterBox, but not an OtterBox because I did not have the money to buy an OtterBox. But it came with an orange silicone sleeve around it, which, as a fun fact, would actually cover the front camera, as you can see here. The reason I got that one specifically, not only have I always really liked the color orange, but it matched the orange silicone grips that I put over my Xbox 360 controller. My friends would call these condoms. I did not appreciate that so much, but it was funny. They would keep the controller from getting sweaty, kind of. But we do have a rear and front camera on this one, 2 cameras this time, and as a matter of fact, the rear camera would take 5 megapixel images. There's a bump from the last one. However, the front would take 0.3 megapixel images and is only labeled as a VGA camera. It is an interesting whole thing you could get into. I highly suggest researching it if you're interested in cameras, like I am. Since it has the ability to take pictures, I'll take a picture. And with the rear camera as well. Evidently, it does have the ability to record video. Hello. What about from the front? Yes, it can record video. Neat. Now I have to figure out how to get that stuff off of here. iTunes doesn't exist anymore. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to recover those images and video that I just took for this. But it has also taken such great photos as my face, a sink full of dishes. Someone has to clean that up. And yes, we do have video from that time period. Here I am falling asleep during one of my overnight shifts at Walmart. But that's going to do it for today in this first part of 2. We do have more phones to look at next time. Obviously, you can't live with them, you can't live without them. Phones are a necessity as part of everyday life that we use them in. This was the first smartphone I think I owned as far as that goes, and it's interesting to see how far it comes, and that it is still usable. I didn't expect it to turn on, honestly, with this one. The other ones I knew would, because I've repurposed them for different reasons. I haven't touched this phone at all in probably 10 years. Still turns on, still seems to function, although I know it's depreciated to the point where I could not do anything with this useful. I'm not even sure if I can get the pictures and video off of there. But because of all of that, and for those reasons, phones are something that I like.